It's an absolute pleasure to be here. This is the end of a lot of photography in London. I'm not sure how engaged you are, but last week was Photo London, and Wanda had an amazing solo booth at the fair, which was incredible, and there will be some slides of that booth on this TV as we sort of cycle through, so you can see what she did here in London last week. We're going to talk about this project, how it came about, what it means, its significance for us today and for you, for photography. Mm-hmm. Could you start by telling me a little bit about how this came about?
Of course, yeah. Basically, my father was a photojournalist in a 70s socialist Hungary, and but later years he sort of stopped taking documentary photography. So while I was a kid and a teenager, actually I didn't know these pictures at all. And he was taking he was doing commercial photography, he was doing fashion photography, and basically I just didn't know about these pictures at all. But still, he was the one who bought me my first camera when I was 16. He was the one who was teaching me the basics of photography and the technical aspects of photography and the history of photography. Still, he didn't want me to become a professional photographer.
Of course.
Because this was around the early 2000s when everybody started taking pictures on digital cameras. So he was a bit worried about me, and I had good grades at school, and he just wanted me to become something more normal and have like a more financially stable job, and to become a lawyer or just an engineer or something. Oh my God, sorry, my phone.
Every parent's dream.
Yeah, exactly. And but still, I immediately fell in love with photography. It was a love at first sight thing. So as Lila said, I started studying photography at the Mohylian University of Arts and Design. And the very first time I came to London in 2013, it was through a scholarship. And I did a scholarship at the London College of Fashion for 3 months, and I immediately fell in love with London as well. So I moved here in 2014, and I started studying at the London College of Fashion under Paul Bevan, who was my course leader. It was a fashion photography course at LCF. And of course, I was in my 20s, so I was partying a lot, and I was going out a lot. And I always had, even though my main thing was fashion photography at the time, and I was working with a lot of musicians, but still I always had a little 35mm camera in my hands whenever I was going out. And I just started documenting my nights out, and I started taking pictures of my friends, my surrounding sort of subculture, if I'm allowed to say that. And it was about the time when my father retired from photography. He stopped taking pictures, and he just started rediscovering his old archive and started digitalizing his old negatives. And we just found very surprising similarities. So we started putting together his images from the 70s and my images from like 2015, 16, 17 of East London. And of course the technique was similar, so 35mm black and white film.
But you said you first saw them on Facebook.
Yes, actually, that's right.
I quite like the idea that you didn't know he was doing this, and yeah. He was posting them on Facebook.
Yeah. And
you realized that he was sort of doing this at home back in Hungary.
Exactly. He was building a social media presence on Facebook, basically. And he just literally started like uploading a lot of like hundreds and hundreds of pictures, like one picture per day kind of thing. And there was a lot of like different type of photography, like the countryside kind of thing,
but
and like old people.
His personal photographs rather than his official photographs.
Both. Because some of these pictures were published in a county newspaper in Békéscsaba, in my hometown, and some of these pictures were actually never published, especially these ones on youth culture. Because as you can see, some of these pictures have like long-haired, rebellious people on the photos, and these pictures were never allowed to get published until recent years. And the main thing, so you're gonna see a lot of pictures up here, but it's all mixed up. So it's a mix of my pictures from 2016, 17 East London with his images from the 70s, and the whole concept was basically sometimes you cannot even tell them apart because of the recurring fashion, the hairstyles, and of course the techniques. And we just started like handling this as like a joint series on youth culture, and we felt it has something very universal to talk about, like teenagers and youth and young people just want to be young people and just having fun, falling in love, and forgetting about reality.
So these are sort of universal themes. I mean, it goes back to Romeo and Juliet, doesn't it? It's like this universal theme about teenage love and rebellion. Although I think it's interesting, presumably in Hungary, youth were rebelling against quite different things to the teenagers in East London.
Definitely.
I mean, what youths in Hungary in the 1970s were rebelling against, presumably, kind of the government, as far as they were able, or their inability to access American culture.
Definitely.
Or Levi's. You said Levi's were a huge thing. So it's a stronger rebellion, perhaps, than East London, where I guess kids are just trying to find their tribe.
Exactly, belonging somewhere.
It's more about belonging, but you don't have much actually really to rebel against in comparison with being under a Soviet regime, maybe.
Yeah, in the 70s it was definitely like having that kind of haircut and listening to the Western music, and even the look and as you said, the jeans, it had more of a symbolic meaning to it. While of course, and actually we talked about it yesterday, my dad was telling me all these stories how the only way they could listen to the Western music in Békéscsaba, in my hometown, that they would like have friends smuggling in vinyls through Yugoslavia, for example. And even jeans, like as you said, Levi's, it was a very symbolic thing as well. And that the only way they could get it like through Yugoslavia from the West. And it's a funny thing that you just brought up, like what are we rebelling against here in London, for example? And I got this question quite a lot when we had the exhibition in Budapest. And I just started thinking like, what are we actually rebelling against? I mean, teenagers are gonna be teenagers anyway.
So absolutely, they'll find something.
Exactly. But I think in like our lifetime and in London, for example, and in just my thinking back, it's just the endless options of who I could become, who could I be, where do I want to live, what do I want to become, basically just endless options. That can be quite frustrating as well, because I remember my dad was telling me that he could never travel abroad, or just only once in every 3 years. He could never study abroad. So I was fortunate enough to have that sort of privilege. But
so even though there are these contrasts, the images have this kind of absolutely universal feeling, and it is possible to play a game to try to work out if it's 1970s Hungary or it's the East End, and it's often almost impossible to tell.
Exactly.
Which is what the exercise that you have undertaken. To great effect, and I think I often get it wrong because I don't spot the iPhone, or there are these sort of minuscule clues.
Sometimes there's like the portrait of Lenin hanging behind a DJ, or a laptop hiding in the corner. But some of them are quite hidden. So we definitely want people to guess which one was taken by him and which one was taken by me. So that's why even at Follow London, and when we had a big exhibition in Budapest of the project, we didn't have any name tags next to the images. We wanted people to guess.
To just sort of immerse themselves. Yeah. And tell me a bit about the title, because obviously the title is a very particular photographic reference.
Yeah, so the Ballad of Eternal Youth, it's a very specific reference to Nan Goldin, who's one of my favorite photographers. And I do like homages and like references to a lot of artists I like. And so one of probably her most famous
her greatest work, I think,
The Ballad of Sexual Dependency. So it's just sort of like a reference and like a nod to that. And also she was basically documenting her surrounding subculture in the 80s. Yeah. So that's why.
And you said Ed Templeton as well as another artist that you
Yeah, definitely. Because even like my main thing was fashion photography a long time, and I got that a lot. Like, oh, who are your heroes? Who are your favorite photographers? And it was never fashion photographers. Funnily, maybe Tim Walker. Tim Walker,
Okay.
yes. But other than that, it was always documentary photographers. It was Nan Goldin, Bruce Davidson, or David Armstrong, and Ed Templeton, who's a very famous skater champion. How do you say that? Skateboarder. And he documented that subculture basically surrounding him. And the way he exhibits his work is actually very, very interesting. It's like crazy amount of pictures, like very close to each other. It's like an organized chaos just thrown on the walls. So when we created an exhibition in Hungary at the Mai Manu house, we got huge, like big 4 rooms, like very large scale images as well. But in terms of display and installation, he was my main reference.
So it became almost like a sort of explosion of kind of youth and energy, and then to a degree you've reproduced that in this book, of which is nearly sold out. I mean, it is worth noting there are very few copies of this book left.
I love the advertising.
I am a privileged. I am a privileged owner. It is a wonderful book, and the book is not the same as the exhibition actually, because you've added text and collage, and this is your vision. This book.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even the exhibition, it was my curation, because my father ended up giving me total creative freedom to go through his archive and pick my favorites, because these were not necessarily his favorites.
You said he didn't necessarily understand your choices.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting, because he's obviously looking at this work through the eyes of his training and his career and thinking, why have you chosen? It's not in focus, or it's a bit wonky.
Exactly.
In that candid nature, presumably, was not necessarily something that he might appreciate.
Yeah. Because for me, when I look at these pictures, of course, there's that nostalgic element as well, of course, and it's more about something bigger and universal, while he's looking at some of these pictures like, oh, these are just like nice memories of my friends hanging out, or these are not like perfect photographers, like photos in terms of technical details. As you said, there's some like dust and scratches, and maybe they are not perfectly in focus. So first he didn't understand, but he was like, because youth as a whole is just so far away from him now. He put it somehow like this. So he just ended up like giving me total creative freedom to go through everything and pick whatever I liked. And when I did the curation for the exhibition and for the book, but for the exhibition, and he showed up for the opening night only. So that was the actual first time he saw the pictures on the walls. And he was like, okay, wow, now I get in. So he was actually happy.
That's very nice.
So he was happy. And you asked about the book as well. So that's actually my sort of curation as well. And I was just trying to think how can I transfer that kind of organized chaos that I had on the walls into a book, into a photo book. And I picked that collage kind of aesthetic. And I think it's important to say when I had the exhibition, there was a playlist play. I forgot about the playlist.
There's something very, very, music is clearly very important.
Yeah.
I mean, I think music is central to youth.
Yeah.
Kids they live through music. And the fact that you've done a playlist, I think is wonderful. And, presumably it's 70s music and your music and...
I mean, my music is the 70s music.
And
so.
Okay, there's 70s music.
Yeah, so. Mainly. And I included songs that I know my dad likes, or he introduced me to that kind of music anyway. He was the one who showed me the Beatles the first time, and the Animals, and the Kinks, and all these kind of bands. So I ended up picking my favorite songs and some like quotes from the lyrics, and I just put them into the collages, like handwritten. So it's definitely.
They reminded me of like the things you might see on the walls in a club, or in the loos. Actually, there's often graffiti in the loos. Dare I say?
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
People would leave messages, and there's a sense of wonderful transience about this, and yet it's forever. you know, it's a shared history.
It's beautiful.
And I wonder how, I mean, for you and your father, has it been, I mean, I don't know what your relationship was like before, but I mean, it must have been a very nice thing to do together.
Definitely. I mean, we always had disagreements, especially when it comes to photography as well. And we have a very different aesthetic. And you would never tell when you're looking at these pictures, but in the rest of his work, he has, when he was doing fashion photography and commercial work, it's a very traditional beauty that he admires and he photographs, while my work always had more of an edgy side to it. And even when it comes to casting, for example, and I worked with a lot of musicians with like missing tooth and like crazy haircuts and everything. So that's kind of those are the kind of characters, the outsider characters I'm drawn to, while he's very much into more of the traditional beauty standards. So we never agree usually, but I think he's very happy.
He must be happy. And do you feel, I was saying that, you know, when I think about the top 10 photographers of all time, maybe 8 of them are Hungarian. I mean, you know, Hungary has this absolutely incredible kind of photo history and tradition and importance. And how far do you feel the weight of that? Or do you just not worry about it?
I think I'm just more proud.
You're more proud, yeah.
Like,
it's a great heritage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that still sort of holds today, I think.
Yeah. But it's definitely a nice thing whenever I'm in New York or London, LA, I'm like, yeah, I'm a photographer from Hungary. From Hungary, it's always like...
Everyone's like,
Robert Kappa.
You all come from Hungary. Yeah. That's very, very nice. And I think what's important about this is it's not actually a documentary project. This is something that is far more conceptual, and it's the marrying of these two things together and the melding that you've created much more as a result that I think people can kind of connect to and feel some sort of empathy with, and I think that's really, really wonderful. I wonder, will you tour it? Is your plan to take it elsewhere?
Definitely. So we had the exhibition in Budapest. Then we had an exhibition in my hometown in Békéscsaba. That made sense because my father took most of his pictures in that town. And then the next step was to bring it to London as just a natural step, basically, because my pictures were almost all of them taken in London. And now I had Photo London, even though it was like a small mini version of it, but even within the 5 days, there were like thousands and thousands of people probably seeing it. So that was my main thing with the Photo London, to get that exposure and like a lot of people seeing it. And as you said, I almost sold out of the books as well. So a lot of people have a little part of this project in their homes too. But I definitely would like to have it like traveling other places as well, maybe Paris. And I was talking to the Hungarian Cultural Center in New York. So we're gonna start working on something in New York.
That's very
and
nice.
Possibly Berlin as well. Because this project have that west-east kind of connotation.
And people have turned up from the pictures as well, both your father's pictures and your pictures.
Yeah.
Which I think is because both cultures are gone. Those clubs have gone because of COVID, and obviously the 1970s in Hungary is another world now. And it's rather wonderful so that people could find themselves again in your pictures and kind of reconnect with that moment.
Yeah, probably because my dad keeps on posting these pictures on Facebook.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are like, hey, this is Katy and this is this and that. So just people keep on recognizing themselves, and some of them showed up at the opening. Like that guy, the DJ guy, came as well, for example.
Did he?
That was lovely. Yeah.
That's very nice.
So it's just nice to hear their stories as well, and it's just amazing how some of these guys, I'm gonna show you later, they were like, yeah, because we had the long hair, we kept them like being chased by the police, and they had these amazing stories to share. And now at Photo London, my people came as well. So it was a wonderful experience.
It's amazing to think that having long hair could be such a problem, actually.
Right?
I mean, how times have changed.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.